Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Virginia Morris. Today we commemorate the 55th anniversary of the attack on Fire Support Base Balmoral. 55 years ago, soldiers of the 1st Australian Task Force fought the most sustained and arguably most hazardous battles of the Vietnam War, confronting regimental-sized formations of the North Vietnamese Regular Army in fierce actions around fire support bases Coral and Balmoral in the Bien Hoa province north of Saigon. Fire Support Base Coral was established on the 12th of May in an area known to contain infiltration routes used by Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army forces. The enemy had attacked Saigon during the Communist Second General Offensive and was expected to use these routes in withdrawing. Fire Support Base Coral's defences were unfinished when it was attacked in the early hours of the 13th of May. 11 Australians were killed and 28 wounded, while the attackers lost more than the 52 bodies they left behind. Operations continued in the area for almost 4 weeks as the Australians fought some of their largest and most sustained battles of the Vietnam War. Further casualties occurred during patrol clashes, and Coral again came under attack, first from a North Vietnamese Army force estimated at 3 battalions strong, and later from further rocket and mortar barrages. On the 26th of May, 55 years ago today, enemy efforts were focused on Fire Support Base Balmoral, which had been established about 5 kilometres north of Fire Support Base Coral. The defenders threw back the assault, and after another early morning attack on the 28th of May, the North Vietnamese had once again been defeated. This assault was the final attempt to remove the 1st Australian Task Force from the area, and there were no further assaults on fire support bases Coral or Balmoral. Today we remember the attack on Fire Support Base Balmoral. We pay our respects to men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is God by sea.
If you wish to and you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one of the stories behind those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Geoffrey Thomas Worle. Geoff Worle was born in Melbourne on the 20th of July 1946, the son of Second World War veteran Henry Worle and his wife Ella. He grew up in the Bayside suburb of Hampton and attended the local primary school before going to the Hyatt High School. After gaining his intermediate certificate, he found employment as a railway booking clerk at North Brighton Railway Station. Worle was a keen outdoorsman who loved fishing, boating, swimming, and most outdoor sports, and was a popular member of the Sandringham Angling Club. Having received his National Service call-up papers in October 1966, He entered the 2nd Recruit Training Battalion at Puckapunyal in February 1967. After infantry training at Ingleburn, he was posted to the 3rd Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment, then based at Woodside in the Adelaide Hills, and joined B Company. 3RAR was preparing to deploy to South Vietnam, and training was intense. On the 16th of December, the battalion embarked aboard HMAS Sydney, bound for Vietnam. After disembarking at Vung Tau, 3RAR was transported to Nui Dat. The unit conducted its first operation in early January 1968, and over the next 4 months was involved in mine clearing and reconnaissance in force tasks. On the 12th of May, 3RAR, along with 1RAR, 102 Field Battery and other supporting units, was flown 25 kilometres north of Bin Yat Hua, where they'd established Fire Support Base Coral. Their task was to disrupt any enemy troops withdrawing from Saigon after a major offensive. Fire Support Base Coral was attacked that night. The Australians suffered 9 killed and 28 wounded. 3RAR left Coral and set up nearby Fire Support Base Coogee before being sent to establish Fire Support Base Balmoral on the 24th of May. Defences were still being completed when 2 North Vietnamese Army main force regiments forced an attack in the early hours of the 26th of May. D Company of 3RAR took the brunt of the initial assault. The enemy broke and withdrew after receiving heavy fire from the soldiers of 3RAR and canister rounds and machine guns from the Centurion tanks of 1st Armoured Regiment. 4 men from 3RAR were killed that night. A further 14 were wounded. 2 days later, in the early hours of the 28th of May, the enemy launched a major attack on Fire Support Base Balmoral. Whilst 2 enemy battalions were involved, the men of 3RAR, with artillery and air support, resisted the attack over several hours of fighting, and the enemy paid a heavy toll. Australian positions, however, continued to be hit by mortar and rocket fire. A little after 2 a.m, Private Worle was killed during an enemy mortar bombardment. By the time the battle ended, a further 8 Australians had been wounded, 2 of whom remained on duty. Geoffrey Worley's remains were returned to Australia and laid to rest in a private ceremony in Cheltenham Memorial Cemetery. He was 21 years old. Worley's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, along with more than 500 others from the Vietnam War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of courage and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Geoffrey Thomas Worle, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. Wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.